The Best of Living in Iowa is funded in part by the Gilchrist Foundation, founded by Jocelyn Gilchrist, furthering the philanthropic interests of the Gilchrist family in wildlife and conservation, the arts and public broadcasting, and disaster relief.
Funding for this program was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation. Generations of families and friends who feel passionate about the programs they watch on Iowa Public Television.
Hello, this is Morgan Halgren. For 16 seasons, Living in Iowa told the tale of what it means to be uniquely Iowan. Tonight, we honor that spirit by bringing you another glimpse into our rich heritage with a few stories from our archives. In this episode of The Best of Living in Iowa, we'll fly low over Iowa cornfields and crystal lakes on a lazy summer balloon ride, search for a lost cannon beneath the streets of Sheraton, and we'll listen to the skirl of the pipes when we drop in on a performance of the Iowa Scottish Heritage Pipes and Drums.
Most people want to get away from it all by striking out on their own to some distant location. The Fromm family of Indianola had a different approach. 8 years ago, they bought a hot air balloon, and together they made the discovery that if you just get a loftier perspective on things, it can strengthen the family and fire the imagination.
This is Maggie. Maggie has had lots of ups and downs in her life, but she's got what it takes to go with the flow. She wears bright colors and enjoys being noticed. And she's always got family around her, which makes her very, very happy.
Okay, I'm Edel Fromm, and I'm Jim's mother, and I have retired so I can go ballooning with them almost, and I live right next door, so I can go ballooning almost any time they ask me, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
Maggie the balloon joined the Fromm family because of Adele.
And since she helped them out so much with the purchase of the balloon, her first name is Margaret, so they named the balloon Maggie.
Let's meet the rest of the family. Jim Fromm is Maggie's pilot.
I've got, about 440 hours flying a balloon, so that would be, 300 or 400 different flights, I suppose.
Jim's wife, Rita, is the crew chief. She has flown only 5 times in 20 years.
There's always been somebody that wants to go up more than I do, and I know that anytime I want to go up, I could say it's my turn, and it would be my turn, so.
Their daughter, Monica, was only 8 years old when she first began holding the balloon's crown line. Now she's studying with her dad to be a pilot.
I've probably been on 20 or 30 balloon flights in my life. All of them have been with my father, and it's a lot of fun.
Monica's brother Mason is away at college. This is Monica's husband, Joe Thompson. They're newlyweds. Balloonists need plenty of crew members, so the Fromms have adopted an extended family.
Mark Zeno. It's just a lot of fun, and there's nobody better I'd wear the crew for than Jim and Rita.
My name is Deanna Zeno. Yeah, my husband Mark, we had a balloon until about 2 years ago, and then it died, so now we help.
Justin Terry likes balloons and has hopes of being a pilot, too.
My dad used to fly, so.
And Mom.
And Mom. So I've been up a few times.
And his friend Andy has come along just for the fun of it.
I'd never been up in a balloon, and I just started today.
It wasn't until 1783 that people really were able to lift off and fly. And it started with Montgolfier brothers. They didn't know whether anyone could breathe when they got up in the air. So they sent animals up, a duck, a sheep, and a rooster in a basket, and they came down safely. So then they knew that it would be safe to send people.
Since then, there have been improvements, and balloons have been used in every major war since their invention. They were also important in scientific exploration of Earth's stratospheres. But it wasn't until the 1960s that ballooning became a sport.
His first flight was in October of 1960, and he strapped propane tanks to his back, sat on sort of a trapeze-like affair, and it worked. He flew, and he wasn't injured, and they developed from there.
It comes inside here and splits up into coils that go around and around here, and then come back down inside and then come out. The propane actually comes out these small holes way down inside the burner.
The propane tanks have replaced open fires in the gondolas, and they're really hot.
There's 28 million BTU or so there if you hit them both at once, and that's a lot of heat. Of course, we've got about enough volume here for about 5 houses. 77,500 cubic feet is what this thing holds, so it takes a lot of heat to change the temperature quick enough to make a difference in your buoyancy.
Here's the recipe for a ride. Take a big ripstop nylon envelope, fill with regular air, heat the air with propane, let it rise, then jump into the gondola and go. Note, it might help to figure out which way the wind's blowing first.
Hi, Ball. We'll probably want to drag down over the weeds just a little bit, I think, because it's kind of coming out of the north.
Like any proud parent, Jim shows off Maggie's best tricks. With his mastery, she can skip across a pond,
Splash and dash.
rise to the height of a mountain, touch the treetops,
This is tough to do in an airplane.
and check the corn tassels. But ballooning isn't just about getting places, it's also about appreciating simple pleasures.
Surprised we haven't seen any deer thrashing through this down here. They like to hide in the trees.
There's a lot more to piloting than Jim lets on. But for Andy, the riding is easy, and the view, fabulous.
Bored yet? Okay, good. We thought at first it would just be a toy, but as we found out, that kind of transfers down to the kids, and it's a neat thing for them to have a little identity and a little pride.
As the sun escapes to the west, the whole crew gathers to give Maggie the balloon a much-deserved rest. Andy, who says his ride was the best experience he'd ever had, is told to kneel for his initiation ceremony.
A toast to you, our crew. The winds have welcomed you with softness. The sun has blessed you with its warm hands. You've flown so high and so well that God has joined you in your laughter and sent you gently back into the loving arms of Mother Earth. Congratulations.
It's been said that faithfulness to the truth of history involves far more than research into facts. The historian must also have a feeling for the life and spirit of the time. John Pierce of Sheraton has no trouble immersing himself in the history of his community, and he seems to have brought it to life for a few others as well. Here in Sheraton, right by the Lucas County Courthouse, there's a lot of excitement being generated by what looks to be a street repair. But in fact, a test hole is being dug to find out if there is a cannon from the Civil War that's been buried here for a long time. There's a lot of curiosity and a lot of people interested to see what's going to happen.
Digging Up the Past is the title for Sheraton's 1996 Iowa Sesquicentennial Project. No one is more eager to find the Civil War cannon than local historian John Pierce.
I've been interested in history since I was in high school, and I've just always asked older people around me all the history they knew. I asked all my grandparents before they died all about their family and any history they knew.
Researching a story for his history series in the local newspaper, John stumbled upon a strange article about a Civil War cannon covered with weeds near the courthouse. It seems in the early 1890s, the easiest way to beautify the lawn around a brand new courthouse was to dig a hole and bury bad memories.
From the original article, it said the cannon was supposedly buried in front of that building. So now, in 1934, they widened the streets to there, and To the best of my knowledge, they paved over the cannon. I seen no article about them digging it up, so everything just points to this should be the place right here.
1 year earlier, a metal detector had indicated an 8-foot-long object buried at an angle to the street. Today, Chris Deppner tests the area again with his metal detector.
Well, there's something here. We don't know what it is. We're just keeping our fingers crossed. I know that John is.
According to the water department, this blue line is above a water main. Chris was able to accurately trace its path all the way down the street.
How sure are you that this is going to be a cannon?
Oh, 90%.
Okay. And how much do you want it to be a cannon?
Oh, 150%. We needed a project, and everybody thought this sounded like a super project.
If they locate the cannon with this test hole, a grand excavation will be held during the sesquicentennial celebration. But a bit of doubt surfaces when metal reinforcement rods in the concrete are exposed, which may have confused the metal detector.
I see the metal rods there, and there's a possibility that that detector picked those up.
But it looks like the re-rod is going in all directions, and your signal was more or less an elongated one.
Yes, it was. Plus, also, the signal, when I swept from side to side, the signal was a little wider signal, too, than what the rod is.
Right. As we're getting closer to the time where we would be able to see the cannon, a crowd is really gathering and everybody's looking down into the hole, hoping for the same thing, I know.
There, he's on something there.
Well, there's quite a bit of water around it. I suppose it's a water main. Solid. There isn't anybody from the water department here, is there?
Do you remember those blue lines the water department used to mark the path of the water line? Well,
we show our one out there, but that doesn't mean that there's not another one in here, because this was put in something like 1903. I know it's not a cannon. That is a water main.
this unmarked water main is running perpendicular to the burial site indicated by the metal detector. So, since the street is torn up anyway...
Well, any ideas?
Dig deeper.
A little deeper?
Yeah.
While they continue their quest for the elusive cannon, we'd like to fill you in on some other historical topics that John has dug up. Way back when the cannon was cluttering up the courthouse lawn, Ephraim C. Bridge was shooting photos of Sheraton's town square.
I think he did it for publicity, and he only had his photography shop for about a year, and then he went to optometry.
A wooden fence kept wandering livestock off the courthouse grass until an ordinance in 1871 required pig pens. Just beyond the double outhouse is the Opposition House, an early hotel and den of iniquity. It was there in 1868 that Sheriff Gaylord Lyman foiled a scheme of robbery, arson, and murder.
And this Edmund Holden, they asked him why he had got into such a scrape, and he said, I told her that it was bad whiskey, bad company, and damn bad women that had caused him to get into all this trouble.
2 years later, Sheriff Lyman was killed by a horse thief who was lynched from a second-story window of the old brick courthouse. On a more positive note, Sheraton benefited from the generosity of a well-traveled railroad tycoon named Smith Henderson Mallory.
He built it in 1879, and the local residents dubbed it Mallory's Castle. It had a lake, a 9-hole golf course as early as 1881. Really a fantastic place. Mallory also built other buildings around town, one of them which would have been the Opera House. It burned down in 1904.
After the stately schoolhouse burned down, Sheraton organized a volunteer fire department. A rare steam boiler pumper wagon named Old Betsy is still proudly displayed in the firehouse. The setting sun casts a shadow over the empty grave and over John's hopes for finding the cannon this day.
It's either been dug up in the past with no publicity, or we're not in the right place.
But do you feel like you'd like to keep digging a little more?
Oh, I feel like we'll give it a good shot there. We knew there was some risk going in, and I think everybody thought it was worthwhile. if it would turn out, it'd have been great. And we're going to try another angle. And we're not going to give up, we're just going to keep trying there.
I think it's pretty clear that everybody shared John's disappointment, and yet his determination to keep on digging and try a new angle has made us all feel a little bit better. He intends to keep on digging into Iowa's past. When someone does march to a different drummer, he or she usually has to work hard to preserve that sense of identity. Here's a group that works hard to preserve their identity, and they have a great time doing it.
The Scottish soldier likes nothing better than to be led in the charge by their pipers. The Highland bagpipes became incorporated into British military units sometime in the early 1800s.
The sounds that inspired Scottish soldiers live on in the heartland through civilian regiments like the Iowa Scottish Heritage Pipes and Drums. Musicians from around central Iowa enlist to capture the excitement of their Scottish heritage.
We consider every concert a battle. Yeah, we have that kind of excitement about us. It's sometimes necessary to remind them that we are indeed not a regiment. There's something about the military meeting the music that just brings out the best in everybody.
The group performs at a banquet honoring St. Andrew, the patron saint of Scotland. His feast day is observed each November with this dinner sponsored by the Scottish Heritage Society of Iowa. In the tradition of a Scottish military mess hall, a piper plays at each quarter hour before dinner is served. Music adds to the ceremonial atmosphere as the haggis is brought in. Similar to a sausage, haggis is made from liver, onions, oatmeal, and spices, and baked in a sheep's stomach. Scott describes haggis as standard farm food that over the centuries has been raised to the level of a holiday dish, much like a Thanksgiving turkey. And each well-known military song carries its own curious history.
Lochenside is a retreat march, which does not mean that you run away from the enemy. It means that it's a time for an orderly return to barracks. They would go to the taverns, and so the retreat was really to march them around a little bit and sober them up before it was time for lights out.
Scott believes that something similar to a bagpipe originated in ancient Egypt and was then taken to northern Europe by the Romans.
Every European culture has bagpipes in its history. The Scots adapted it, and it became what we now call the Great Highland Bagpipe. Of course, there's the old joke that the Irish gave the Scots the pipes, and the Scots haven't gotten the joke yet.
Scott theorizes that Roman soldiers also introduced the unusual custom of wearing a skirt-like uniform into battle. But for the colder climates, kilts were made longer and woolen.
The kilt colors are referred to as tartans. We don't use the word plaid. They represent either family heritage or professional heritage. I'm a Presbyterian pastor, so I wear what's called clergy green as my tartan. I'm wearing a Prince Charlie right now. This is the Scottish equivalent of a tuxedo. The shoes I'm wearing are called ghillie brogues, and I have my sporran, which is where you keep your valuables. There are no pockets in a kilt. A fur sporran is for evening wear. Just a leather sporran would be for what we call day wear.
The dances were traditionally performed by men only, but in keeping with emerging traditions, These young ladies now contribute their high energy to the festivities.
Legend has it that if the dancer touches the sword, that warrior will not come back alive from battle. The Highland Fling is the dance of victory. In just total joy, we are victorious. The Iowa Scottish Heritage Pipes and Drums went to the World Scottish Gathering in Montreal, Canada this year, and we competed there. We took second place. We were very proud of that. And it's appropriate when regiments leave an area to write a farewell tune to that area. On the way back, one of our pipers, Bill Nesmith, wrote this tune. So tonight we're going to give the Iowa Scottish Heritage Farewell to Montreal its world premiere.
The pipers, drummers, and dancers help to safeguard the Scottish heritage of their fellow Iowans. By wearing traditional Scottish attire and learning to play the bagpipes, Scott enthusiastically demonstrates the legacy of his ancestors.
That got me involved with a really great group of people. We have people in the band with a drive to succeed, and it gets better every year, and it's more fun every year.
The Best of Living in Iowa is funded in part by the Gilchrist Foundation. Founded by Jocelyn Gilchrist, furthering the philanthropic interests of the Gilchrist family in wildlife and conservation, the arts and public broadcasting, and disaster relief.
Funding for this program was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation. Generations of families and friends who feel passionate about the programs they watch on Iowa Public Television.